the college football season, Clay, going to be over pretty soon. NFL season at its midway point. The NBA season is just getting underway. So tell me where you think each program stands. at the end of the season, really, the Dolphins midway point, and the Heat here at the beginning.
So I think unfortunately, unless they do find a way to pull off this one, I do think it's going to be remembered largely for what happened at Georgia Tech, and then again what happened at NC State. And you got to find a quarterback. And so whether that's someone who's already in the program that you feel good about, I think unfortunately at this point we know who Tyler Van Dyke is, and I don't think it's going to be him. Even if he wanted to come back for another season, I think it's time to move on and find that quarterback. And until you do, and you start to add more talent to the program, this is who you are. You're a 7-8 win ACC program. Miami Dolphins, I didn't like the end of that game, and it wasn't, to me, it was as simple as, man, you got to know you've beaten up on the Chiefs defense the entire second half, and they looked gassed. And I didn't love how that ended. And yet I still feel good about where the Dolphins are relative to the rest of the NFL landscape. I still think they're going to be right there at the end of the season. And I think the one thing we're seeing right now is, man, that defense is starting to pick it up. And I saw something today, NFL Media had Bradley Chubb as a top 2 or 3 Defensive Player of the Year candidate. On a line with Jalen Phillips, Zach Sealer, and Christian Wilkins, and then you get Jalen Ramsey in the mix now. I'm curious to see, now that you've got all those guys on defense and you got the full court, how does that carry out the rest of the year? So I still like where they are. The Heat are the Heat. I mean, it's the regular it's the regular season, and the regular season is what it is. I've been, I guess, a little disappointed about maybe what we've seen from Josh Richardson so far. I thought he'd add more. I think it's a bummer that Tyler Herro is out, and yet I don't feel any differently about the team's trajectory than I did at the beginning of the year.
You almost don't care, and I know it's ridiculous to say, but you almost don't care game to game whether they win or not. Like I'm almost, we're so, I don't want to say immune because it sounds like that's a bad thing to the regular season, but we're just so locked in, which I imagine the team is as well. We're so locked in for the postseason when it comes to the Heat that, okay, if they lost tomorrow in Atlanta, doesn't really, like, it's not going to affect you too much. They beat San Antonio Sunday. They don't win. It doesn't really matter. Like, they'll do enough to get in the playoffs, you hope. And then they'll show who they really are.
Right. And so that's why, like, the regular season stuff, I want to see who's emerging that you can count on to give you some juice in the playoffs potentially. And when that bench starts to shorten, I love what I've seen from Haywood Highsmith. I just think, man, like, you talk about a guy who, and you heard some of the Caleb Martin whispers in the offseason that, hey, Haywood Highsmith is going to be the next Caleb Martin and do what he did. You're starting to see it a little bit. And, hopefully by the end of the season, he's giving you that level in the postseason. Hopefully Caleb himself comes back. I love what we've seen from Jaime Jaquez. And it's like a guy comes in as a quote unquote rookie, and you see him at the end of the game, and there's just no panic. He knows where he's supposed to be. So for me, it's, game to game, it's like, result is what it is. I want to see, can these other guys that you're going to have to rely on at some point in important moments down the season, what are they showing you? And I kind of like what we've seen from some of those guys so far.
Well, what about from one of your stars, Clay? I saw the updated odds for Defensive Player of the Year. It was on one of the gambling sites. Oh, thank you. Your music to my ears, Clay. Bam's not even in the top 5. I mean, are you kidding me?
Is that so? It's got to be Rudy Gobert, though, and everyone else.
Oh,
right?
But enough with Rudy Gobert.
Have you seen what he's been doing this season, though?
Oh, great. They're going to miss the playoffs, or they're going to be the 10th seed and be out in the first round again. Okay. Clay, how is it possible that Bam Adebayo puts up a triple-double against the Lakers and Anthony Davis and then follows it up against the past 2 Defensive Player of the Years and dominates them? And he's not even and he's the best player. He's the best defensive player in the NBA. He's not even in the top 5.
Though. 20 and 20. I mean, make it at least something that's impressive.
Hawk wasn't impressed by the 2020 triple-double.
They took it away from him. Didn't
maybe I'm naive on this. I think this might be one where the gambling site may be a little bit behind. I think that, like I said, maybe I'm naive, but I think that people around the NBA are starting to realize, okay, this is kind of silly. And the thing with Gobert, let's see how the rest of the year plays out. The thing that always concerns me about Gobert, and it happened in the playoffs a couple of years ago when the Jazz played the Clippers, is you can play him off the floor. You can play a small lineup. You can play a bunch of shooters, and you can play him off the floor. You can't do that against Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo guards 1 through 5. And I think I still feel like this is going to be the year where, at the very least, he gets on the all-defensive team. And I think if he keeps doing some of the stuff that he's done over the last week or so, then I think people are finally going to start to come around on the type of player he is. Because lastly, Damian Lillard wanted to come here to play with him. Bam is the guy that the players know. He's the guy that players want to play with because of stuff like that. And I think that's slowly going to start to trickle down to the media who vote on these awards.
So, Lana, what was sexier, the Atlanta Hawks social media post regarding the in-season tournament, or Clay Ferrero talking about Haywood Highsmith?
Clay Ferrero talking about Haywood Highsmith and Triple J. I mean,
So Lana loves himself some Haywood Highsmith, though.
I would pay. I would pay to hear that type of talk about Haywood Highsmith.
I mean, you watch the guy, though. The arms. I mean, he is just all over the place. You could legitimately play him at a power forward spot because his arms are so long. He's going to be able to swat guys that are taller than him. And bother guys. I'm a huge fan, and I think the other thing with him is the evolution of that 3-point shot for him. He's so confident out there with that.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about, hey, how do you find that ideal 4 next to Bam?
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, he's not exactly, maybe not be tall enough to be the ideal 4, but he's certainly shooting and playing defense like it.
So Lana is so ready to subscribe to your OnlyFans channel. Like, all you have to do is give takes about Haywood Highsmith the way that you just did right there. Solana's Solana's tapping his brow with a handkerchief. He's sweating.
Clay, right now, tell me, what's the Heat's record with Haywood Highsmith in the starting lineup? Come on, tell me.
Undefeated. Undefeated. Are we 3-0? Is that a 3-0?
Cameras off.
Guys, I hate to cut this short, but I'm going to have to go and call the Miami Heat to make sure they file a restraining order against Solana for Haywood Highsmith.
Yes,
I think for the safety of everybody involved, let's get out in front of this.
Please do so. Clay Ferrero from Local 10. Don't forget, tomorrow you can watch Canes FSU on Local 10. You can listen to it here as well on 560 WQAM. You'll see Clay tonight out at Drive Pink Stadium if you're heading out there, and have a nice evening. Are you going to stay for the entire match, or are you just going to do a little hit and get out of there?
Just a hit and get out of there, then get back, and I'll be editing the Panthers highlights. Canes basketball too. I want to see what they look like again.
Yeah,
we've got a lot of stuff we got to look at tonight.
Jimmy sent me a message on Instagram. Canes basketball had put a post on there of the rings that the players are getting tonight. Like, there's going to be a banner raising at the Watsco Center. And who is it? UCF tonight? I think UCF.
Yeah, it's the Knights.
Yeah.
So we'll have some action in South Florida. Inter Miami, Panthers, and Hurricanes basketball all in action. All right, thanks, Clay.
Anytime, fellas. Take care.